is our branding guy, and he is someone that we spent years searching for a branding person that we would trust to take our brand to the next level. Interviewed, 100 different branding experts. There's a lot of branding experts that, I don't know. But anyway, but this guy on the very first call with him, said some things that just made a whole lot of sense. And I'm like, man, we need to get this guy as part of our world. And when we learn something awesome, when we make a new connection, when we get around someone that I think is going to benefit our audience, we don't hide them, right? We don't say, don't look at the guy behind the curtain. We bring him out here. And so that's what we do. Just the same way with Kim Garst. When I ran across Kim's stuff, how many know Kim? She'll be speaking tomorrow. One of Forbes' top 10 social media influencers worldwide. And, I ran across her stuff, thought she was awesome, had to hire her and then bring her in here to teach you guys some stuff. Same thing with this gentleman. And so he is helping us to take our brand to a little bit different level. And he's going to help you with understanding what branding really is and what that looks like. So I'm very excited. He's worked with some very, very large companies. We're blessed and honored to have him here with us here today. Please show him some energy and some power. My man, Howard Lim. Thanks,
man.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. I love this crowd. So we got a lot to go through on the subject of branding. So I know many of you, let me just show of hands, how many of you work for a business right now? You can raise your hands. And then how many of you actually own a business? Okay, and how many do you want to create a business? Okay, great. So I got samples. I'm going to show you 3 very specific case studies that address these 3 different domains. So let's just go ahead and get started because there's a lot of content I need to move through. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of my background, establish some credibility of being up here, and then the epidemic with 99% of brands nowadays, and then how to give your brand an edge over your competitors, and understand why branding is the most important business language today, and then show you some evidence case studies, and then get into Q&A. So that's going to be the outline for the next 75 minutes. So the first is a little bit of my background. Okay, so when at the age of 5, the first time I ever experienced finger painting, believe it or not, mixing a powder with the water and putting my finger on a paper, I knew that I just wanted to create. For those that are athletic, like, playing basketball or playing football, whatever it may be, you get in that zone. That's what it felt like to me. I was in that zone. I felt like I was literally just with one. And so from that point on, I really had great mentors through grade school, junior high, and high school that really realized that's really was my purpose, was to create. So I finally had an opportunity to go to 2 schools and to learn the fundamentals. One was Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, where I learned the fundamentals. Yeah, nice. The fundamentals of design and advertising. And then I had an opportunity to combine that and go to Art Center, where they had the first Macintosh lab in the world. This was in '87. That's when I decided that I wanted to create a whole new way of thinking, okay, for all industries. So I became a disruptive solution provider. And I'm just saying this to give you some background. I don't like self-aggrandizing. I'm not that type of person, but I want to establish some value so you could take away from this event, okay? So what we did was we revolutionized different industries, like the record industry with MCA Capitol Record. We showed them how to really create the jewel boxes, the CDs, because it was, again, a change from analog to digital. When it came to DVDs, okay, we actually built the brand of that whole category with campaigning it through advertising and billboards of why someone should watch and use a DVD disc versus VHS and beta. And then when it came to Kodak from analog to digital, we actually showed them how to actually articulate the colors from an analog film into the computer system, which is now standard. And then we actually introduced what was possible with taking offline offset printing to digital printing. And then when it came to special effects for ABC networks and CBS, we showed them how to do what's called offline editing now. This is before Adobe came out with Adobe Premiere. And the final thing that we had a huge contribution in was actually creating the posters to introduce to the government the use of the World Wide Web besides just governmental and education use. Okay, so we were in charge of creating digital posters. So what did this mean for big companies is that we were seeked out by Apple, the G3, when the G3s were introduced, to help with the campaigning. We helped out with Disney for the Broadway show, okay, from Lion King. We actually helped out HBO with the flying graphics, and we helped out City of Santa Monica. From that point, then, we produced billions of dollars in revenues and brand equity for our clients. And then I had a huge revelation. About 20 years ago, I've had my business for 30 years, and my friend came to me and said, he said, Howard, you're being so selfish. You only help out the big companies and keeping them as big companies. Why don't you help out smaller companies? And that's when it really hit me really hard. And so I changed my whole business model that I want to support all size companies just like yours. So just to show you a few things that we've done, we work with startups doing makeovers, we expand companies, and we actually help companies get to an exit strategy. But these are just a few of our wins, like the top left with Piano Wizard, teaches kids how to play the piano at the age of 5, a video game. And then in 4 years, it had a valuation of $43 million. We helped out Magic Johnson create the Summer Pro League, which is the first and second draft for NBA. We helped out John Asheroff with NeuroGym, and he's had record-breaking sales, and he's only been 3 years old. So again, I'm just showing you that I want to share with you some valuable information no matter what size business you are in. So what we do is we design authentic brands, and what that means is that brands you could feel. And we do this for all size businesses, where you're B2B, B2C, Fortune 100, or just a plain old startup, okay, or anywhere where you are in your business cycle. So why am I here? Because I'm a firm believer in learn, earn, and return, okay? Okay, so I don't get paid to be here, okay, and I volunteer about 2 months to 2.5 months out of the year helping out businesses like yours understand the power behind building brands. I also want to help you avoid multi-million-dollar mistakes that I see on a regular basis. And then I want you to also understand how to take shortcuts to profits and to think bigger, much bigger, okay? So let's start with what is a brand and what is not a brand. A brand is not your logo, it's not your product, it's not your service, it's not your business, okay? So there's a lot of misinterpretations about what a branding is. People think branding is a logo, right? That's really about 5% of truly what is the essence behind branding. So what is then a brand? It's not what you say. You could say all that you want through your channels as you market through them. It's what people are saying. Does that make sense? Really important distinction, okay? A lot of people work from a one-way street. You got to be looking for a two-way street. So it resides in the minds and the heart of the customer. It resides in the mind and the heart of the customer. That's when you know that you're branded, when your name can come up, okay? So let's say, would you rather go to Tiffany's to shop or Walmart to shop? Okay? So that's the image that's actually embedded in your mind, right? So it's how you think and feel is the expectation and experience of the brand. And let me demonstrate this, okay? So let's just say, I'm sorry, I can't read your name, Rick. Okay, Rick. If you had a chance to win $1 million, and you had 2 cars to choose, and you got trained on how to drive the cars, and you had a chance to win $1 million, would you choose a brand new Volkswagen Bug or a brand new Ferrari? Okay, Ferrari. So the question is, have you driven both of these vehicles? Neither? Okay. That's what it is to be branded. He already has an expectation of the performance of each of these vehicles without even having experienced the brand. Okay? Now, if you add the expectation and experience the brand, and it does perform how you want it to perform, then you got a really strong brand. Does that make sense? So I try to take very complex subjects and try to make it really easy to understand. But that's really the point of being a brand and how to create that brand, okay? That experience. So there's two ways to create a brand: with a strategy and without a strategy. So everyone here, as long as you're creating an image in someone's mind, okay, a prospect to a buyer, you are branding. It doesn't matter what size you are. It doesn't matter if you're producing a product, service, or information. You are branding. Okay, so with a brand without a strategy, unfortunately, becomes a weak brand, leads to a commodity failure. You reach a ceiling, misrepresentation, and unfortunately, an amateur perception. And unfortunately, a big part of branding, by the way, is positioning, which I'm going to talk a lot about, and Ray had pointed that out. But if you don't position first, unfortunately, you start wasting your marketing dollars, your legal fees, your business development, your R&D research, your investment dollars that you invested or your investors invested. So you got to understand it's about positioning first, okay? And I'll get more into this. So, for example, with this piece of brand, would you buy this product? Okay, you're creating an image in your mind, right? Is it the right image? Okay. Okay, and then would you take your kids here? These are real brands that exist right now. So it could be kids exchange. Okay, be ready as kids exchange or kids sex change. Okay. Okay. And then even big brands run into issues all the time. Okay. So you're not alone. You know, these are mistakes are made constantly and costing businesses a lot of money. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference as well as one of the key elements, but it's not about the only thing about branding. It's about 10%, like I mentioned, is a brand mark. So the difference between a logo and a brand mark. So a logo is less time to create, okay, less money, but unfortunately it becomes a cheap representation of your business. It's limited in use. A lot of times it can't reduce the size of a dime to a billboard. So I'm saying this because I want you to be thinking about your own brand and about your own logo or brand mark right now, okay? And think about it. Can your brand mark or logo, can it be reduced the size of a dime to the size of a billboard? Can it work in black and white? Is it simple, bold, and unique? Okay? The unique thing is the most trickiest part. And does it get instant recall to differentiate you from other brands? So a strong brand mark has a big advantage as differentiating from others, communicates the benefit of your brand, integral part of your marketing efforts, a positive association to your customers, okay? Practical for all medias, and has an overall impact on your profits. So, for example, Nike. So, let's say Rick again. Let's say you own Nike, and you go, hey, Howard, I own Nike. I'll sell you all the inventory. I'll sell you all the retail stores. I'll create and present to you all the reps as well. But I'm not going to give you the name of the company or the swoosh, okay, the brand mark. What's the company worth now? Okay, nothing. It's turned into a commodity. So you get the difference between just a commodity, a business, and a brand? A brand has meaning. A brand creates value. And I'll break it down even further. So these are just showing you the transformation and what it could do for your business. This client here, they had Home Sweet Home Care, and they place RN nurses in elderly people's homes that need assisted living, right? And so they had 2 offices. They wanted to grow into 5 offices, but they were having problems. They stumped their growth, in other words. So after going through a strategy and figuring out their positioning, then it came and we created this mark for them, okay? So this mark, now the reason why it has a rose is because when working with the client, we found out, what are you doing uniquely? So when you think about your brand, you got to think about what are you doing uniquely, okay? That's one of the other key ingredients when it comes to building a strong brand. They said, what do we do differently is that we place a rose at the foot of the bed every time we make it to show that we sincerely care about that elderly. I said, great. And that gave us ideas to create a crossbar that gave a uniqueness to separate them from all the rest of the other agencies that are out there. So they end up growing from 3, and it wasn't just this. It was building the brochures and their signage and their websites and so forth. But this became a key element to create the meaning behind the brand mark. So each of these became a case study. WSS, where I'll be showing you the case study. We grew from 52 stores to 87 now in under 4 years. Flying Dutchman, they're on their fifth franchise. They've only been around for a year and a half. They're out here in the Bahamas. And then Perfectly Express, they're all in the big box retails. And then Myler Butler, which I'm not going to show you a case study, but they're in the Bahamas as well. But the point being is that mark is a representation of the bigger picture. Does that make sense? And if you don't have a strong mark to begin with, it's going to be much more difficult to break that barrier of catching the attentions of who you want to catch, which would be your ideal target market. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, great. Okay, so this is the biggest problems that companies I see face. Okay, so I've spoken probably over literally 75,000 people now for the last 20 years on educating on what is branding. The biggest problem I see is that companies, let's say that you're the center shape, okay, this color, and let's say that you got your business that you want to present to others. Well, each of those outer shapes around the spokes represent what are called touch points, ways of introducing your product and service. That could be your website, that could be your product, that could be the name, that could be the Salesforce team, that could be the storefront. But each of those are actually repelling because nothing is aligned, nothing's integrated, telling one story. Now, why is that happening? Because you're hiring a designer to do this, an advertising to do this. What's happening is that there's no one at the helm saying, let's organize this into a strong identity to represent what is it that you have to offer. Does that make sense? Okay? So Ray said it brilliantly, from the standpoint of marketing is really, in a sense, creating leads, right? And nurturing your leads. What are you using to nurture your leads and to actually create your leads? What is your ammunition in a sense? What are you using as your fuel? Well, it should be a strong brand identity. Unfortunately, most companies are set up like this that ends up having a negative emotional reaction, misrepresentation, poor credibility, amateur, and a lack of vision. Now, I could say lack of vision. Ray hit it on a nail as well when he said you got to have a vision. He's so accurate around that. I remember, just this Saturday, I met with Hiroki, who just retired from Apple. He was the main creative director for 18 years, and we're working together on this big project. But the point being, he was ahead of all the advertising that you saw on TV, the print. He got into package designing and the stores. And I said, you know what? I've been using Macintosh computers since '87. I said, I used to buy Macs through Mac Mall, Mac Connection, through the mail order. I said, the smartest things you guys did is build that way to experience the brand with your retail stores. And he looked at me and he goes, Howard, that idea almost got killed. And I said, how? And he said, because the forecast analysts couldn't see the future, meaning the bean counters, the accountants, okay? They are very much needed in your business, but that's not their job to think of the future. Does that make sense? So he says, we got that to pass, and he says, that's what saved Apple. That's what brought Apple to where it is now today. So it's thinking differently is true, okay? But you got to apply yourself on how you're going to be that different brand, okay? And stick with that like a mission. So how can you expect to be paid for what you're worth when you don't look the part? Does that make sense? Okay? So if you're trying to get Nordstrom's, customers and you look like Walmart, how is that going to happen? Right? Okay, so what we figured out was why not create an integrated model where, let's just say that you are this core positioning, okay? And then you have the identity that really reflects the value of what is that you're offering to your consumers, and you're using appropriate channels, whether it's social media, the web, retail, advertising, QVC, whatever it may be, right? You're going through the appropriate channels where everything's integrated. What happens then is that the consumer, right? Remember, a brand resides in the mind and heart of the consumer. If you have the opportunity of creating the right messaging, anytime they approach your touch point, which call them aspiration engagement point, by the way, you have an opportunity to get in the heart and the mind of the consumer to choose your product, service, or information over another. Does that make sense? So it's about alignment, okay? Most companies are set up on the left-hand side, and I call that the schizophrenic, okay? Look. Okay, so you get a positive associations with your brand. Quickly convey the value of the advantages of your product, service, or information. Less time to acquire a customer or employees as well. Do you think Nike, do you think Apple has a problem getting employees and customers? Okay? Because the brand becomes a big magnet that's working for you rather than against you. On the left-hand model, it's repelling. On the right-hand side, it's actually attracting. So the proper sequence is strategy, implementation, and management. And I'm going to break this down further. So the idea behind branding is to build a set of assets to increase the equity. Okay? So what are these assets that are going to be linked to the company? What intellectual property can you use? What kind of things can you trademark? Like the Hidden Group, that's a piece of intellectual property, the brand mark. That's why we actually have the TM, and after he registers it, we're going to get able to get the circle R, right? Those all become an integral part to build the equity behind a brand. This is how the big boys do it. So I'm distilling how we do it when we work with Fortune 100 companies. So anybody could apply this for a smaller company. So it's like putting a 12-cylinder engine in a 4-cylinder car. Okay, so this is the information I'm going to give you. So with Coca-Cola, without the shape, without the color red, without the ribbon shape of Coca-Cola, and all the advertising and the marketing, it says open happiness, they would only be worth $60 billion without that brand equity, okay, without the assets that are attached every time you see the Coca-Cola shape of the bottle or see that color red. They own that color red in the cola space, by the way. So that's another key element is color, okay? But because of all those positive associations, they're worth $120 billion. You see that? So that's how you take a commodity into a brand, is when you're thinking about everything you do strategically, what are you doing to build that value? So here I'm going to go through evidence case studies now. And so this is building a business and brand from scratch. So again, a lot of companies, you don't have to be Fortune 500 company. Again, we actually support and like to educate all size companies. So this company just had an idea, started from scratch. And it was called Optic Wash. It was called Shade Saver when we first were introduced to them. And he had an idea. It was born out of a garage, no business idea, no brand or market, confused where to begin, no idea how to sequence capital, mixed message from vendors where to start and stop, but nobody really to guide them. So this is the product here. So again, even though you might be selling information, picture yourself with this product, okay? As an example of a startup. So this product here washes and dries your eyewear. And it's the first of its kind, and he wanted to bring it out to the world, okay? So I said, I get it. I get this. I could visualize it, and I could get the steps that are going to be involved to make this a reality. But we got a lot of work to do. And Ray's absolutely correct. It takes work, okay? But done properly, you could get to where you want to go quicker. So we went through a 3-day intensive to really avoid decades of costly redos, but at the same time accelerate them into the market. So this is their vision. As when we work with them, we came up with their vision with them. We changed how you clean glasses forever by eliminating traditional frustrating methods, because the frustrating method is using your shirt tail or your jacket and then it scratches a lens, right? So they want to eliminate that. At the same time, they want to give some entertaining value as well so it wasn't boring. So the name that they had was Shade Saver, but as we were going through a strategy, we realized that Shade Saver, you'd be leaving half the money on the table because it only addressing sunglasses. Okay, you get that? Even the name matters big time. Okay, so names matter besides the mark and colors. So we came up with all kinds of unique names that we get as .coms. And we landed on Optic Wash. We came up with about 1,000 different concepts of a brand mark tied into the strategy of what making them unique and different. And this is the final product here, okay? So we actually hired a company that did of all red boxes. Flextronics, Steve was a head engineer. So you got the engineer. We needed a good CAD product designer. So we used Catalyst, and then we handled the overall look and the feel of the product to reflect what's making them unique, what's making them different, and who's their target audience, okay? So what we ended up doing is we said we need to outline how we're going to make you popular, how we're going to use you through the channels. So the first, we went on a road, okay, introducing the first kiosk, cleaning eyewear kiosk. Then we want to introduce latest technology, so we create API banking system, so they can make money not just on the washes, but actually play bank. So you pay for 5 washes, you're paying for the price of 3, and you're getting those other 2 washes for the price of 3. So that gave us more of a leverage. So what I like looking at is like, how can we take one idea and make it where there's multiple revenue streams? That's what you should be thinking. How can you take one idea and create multiple revenue streams? That's what it means to build your business model, okay? Bless you. So we went to a show. Another great place to go is the shows, big shows, trade events. So we went to Spree, which is the biggest show for eyewear. And I said, our job is only one job when we're there, is to meet the biggest mall owners in the world. If we meet 3, I'll be super happy. Okay? We met 5 that had over 250 malls around the world, and they all wanted a product. So this gave us the fuel to raise capital, because now we actually have some traction and got letters of endorsement from these big companies that actually wanted a product. Do you see how that's done? You leverage, you leverage, you leverage, okay, where you want to head. But you got to figure out where you want to go ultimately. And then they went to INPEX, the biggest invention show in the world. They won the grand prize, okay, biggest invention show in, I should say, in the United States. And they won first prize, the grand prize. And then we got them in all the places that they wanted to go, which is the malls, car washes. They're at the Venetian now. And not only that, but we created where they do license agreements with Sunglass House, Oakley, and so forth. This only took, which a lot of work, 2.5 years. This should have taken decades. So I'm saying that when you align your business, your brand, and your market, and you look at it as a cohesive whole, you'll be able to quantum leap in the marketplace a lot quicker, okay? And it would start off with just 2 employees, the owner and his son. That was it. So business and brand makeover, which I'm going to get into now, is, so the first is building a brand, building a business. This one is a makeover. And this one is dealing with the Higdon Group, okay? So they want to transform more than just being about Ray. They wanted a bigger entity in mind. Okay, so I know I've had a conversation at lunch. There's ways to brand you as an individual, which is perfectly fine. And there's ways to brand you and transition you from an individual into a bigger play, into a bigger brand. It's all depending on what is your vision, okay? And someone pointed out during lunchtime, which is a great example, a lot of times celebrities, they want to brand themselves like Lady Gaga, right? Because that has a lot of merit. So it all depends on where you want to head with your business. So do you want to distinguish themselves from all others, have a clarity and vision, value, target audience, and then they want to go from an amateur brand identity to a world class and have it be scalable as well, okay? So we went through a big strategy session, 3 days long, to figure out like their architecture, figure out their values, their philosophy. All the ingredients that are used in big companies applied to smaller companies, again, will allow you to accelerate. So we went through 60 pages of how to really figure out the DNA behind the brand. And this is going to show you some of the assets. So this is the past asset from the standpoint of the signage, of directional signage. And then this shows you their recruiting blueprint. So we had to go through an inventory to see how they've been branding themselves. There's nothing wrong with this, is that they knew that they wanted to grow. So this look wouldn't allow them to grow to where they want to head. Does that make sense? Okay? So it's not about a comparison of what's good or what's bad. It's all about where are you heading with your vision and getting set up in a proper way. So this, again, is the inventory, and they have a lot more touch points in this. And then this is their past logo that we're transitioning right now. We're going through a transition, right? So what we ended up doing after the 3 days, we went to implementation. We got clarity of how big they want to play, and we literally want to create a Fortune 500 mark for them. So we went through, I have over 500 designers in my firm. So basically, we went through 1,000 different concepts, and these are just to show you real quickly different concepts that we went through, okay? Each one told a different story. I believe that each mark should tell a story based on your positioning of who you want to become, who do you want to attract, and what kind of culture do you want to build. Okay, so just showing you just a handful here. And then we got into the color, okay? So I studied the videos of Ray and the hidden group at large of how they actually are being perceived and what is they're using as their identity as far as colors. So we went through a whole color schematic as far as what would look best for them. You know, think of it like this. A brand's like a person. It has a soul. It has a mind. It has intellect. It has a heart. And it wants to be able to communicate. It's like that. You know, I think the best way it was represented was the Apple commercials. I'm a Mac. I'm a PC. I thought that was brilliant. That is the epitome of building a brand. But it's a lot of times you got to get clear too. It's not about you. You could be what's called the ambassador to the brand, which is becoming like Steve Jobs, where he was synonymous with the brand. But Apple is really its own entity by itself. Does that make sense? Okay, just it becomes a bigger play. So, anyways, went through a whole color study, and there's a science in psychology, and Ray's absolutely right. Psychology plays a huge chunk in when it comes to communication, either by branding, marketing, advertising, okay, PR. It's all about being related. So we got to look at what colors can we use to be relatable, and what can we own in a space as well. So that's when we came up with this mark here, okay. Now there's two different why you're seeing doing two different formats, because we want to make sure it could be adaptable for any use, whether it's an app, whether, if it's using a banner, okay, for websites or for social media. It was really important to figure out what are going to be the different usages, but keep it bold, simple, and unique. Keep it bold, simple, and unique. Those are major attributes to a strong brand mark. Bold, simple, and unique. And again, the unique part is the most difficult. Simple, because then it could work for any media. Simple enough because it's easy to digest the way the mind works from the alpha to beta state. And a uniqueness because you separate from everybody else, okay? So this is the old mark, okay? And then this is a new one. It has a lot of flexibility, like the Nike swoosh now. We could eventually leave the hidden group by just showing the mark itself. Does that make sense? Okay? There's reasons for all this. And then this gets into what's called a brand style guide. So, if you're doing work as an affiliate or a license for Apple or for DreamWorks or Disney or whatever it may be, they always have what's called a brand style guide. The brand style guides ensure continuity between all your vendors, internally and externally, to be consistent with your brand. Because it takes only one person or one entity to destroy your brand overnight. Okay, if they use the wrong colors, you could look like a different company. You're not building equity. You're becoming a deficit. Okay, so it's either you're building yourself as a liability or as a true asset and equity to your brand. So you get into color study. Okay, what would be the complementary colors? What's a safe space? What fonts to use? What would work for the web? What will work for print? Okay, all this matters. It's a science to it. And that's probably the biggest difference between graphic design and branding. That graphic design is powerful. I studied design. It's that it's very limited because it's really more tactical. Brand design is about strategy involving a lot of science, psychology, business know-how, and how to really build a lot of equity for your return investment from the standpoint of people investing in your brand. Okay? There's a lot more components when it comes to brand designing, a lot more critical thinking, a lot more science. So this is the old banner. This is the new banner here. You can see the difference. And then this is what you'll be seeing as a preview. This is the current website, and then we'll be changing it completely. So when you come to the new hidden group, it will be this splash page with just introducing who they are. What specifically do they do? How do they want to be communicated? So you could see, when I was studying Ray and the hidden group at large with Jess and Thomas, with everybody, Nick, it was all about what it is as a bigger entity. And it's all about that they really care about the attendees, okay, their customers, okay, their family. I could say it's more of a family, but they really do care about you. And I was really impressed by reviewing videos, reviewing the material. I said, this image here is what tells the story. Because a lot of it's having fun. One of their key values is having fun. So why don't we introduce funness to it, but still keep it where it has a more professional, world-class look? Does that make sense? So you could keep things personal, but still be professional. It's not one or the other. It's an A and D conversation. So this shows the rest of the website, with you being able to scroll using the latest technologies. And then just shows you the before and after with the brochure that you'll be given at some point. So that's the old one at the top, one of the pages. But the bottom page is what's important. So it's really about them talking to you as part of their family, as a friend. So I want to make it more personal, and they do so many cool things. Okay, they do a lot of cool things with our top earners when they travel and so forth. I go, wow, this is really cool. There's a lot of great assets here. It's just that we're not leveraging it the way we could, okay? So this is before, this is the after. The use of colors, okay, and the use of what's called trade dress. You just even getting the color correction in. On the top one wasn't color corrected, the bottom one, but you can see it's bolder, okay? But yet it has that friendly, we want to keep that friendly tone as well. And then this is their, I think this is one of their banners. And it's a great shot of the family, beautiful. But again, we're moving away from just being about Ray Higdon, but about the Higdon group, how they could better serve you as an entire team. You get the difference? And so we use this, what's this called the key art. So now we're using this image here to be used in a lot of multiple touch points, so you get familiar with the image. Does that make sense? Like some of the best advertising on TV that you see in print, it's not for you to get you to buy something. It's really about building what's called brand awareness. Having you be aware of that product or service or information, so when the time that you're ready to buy, you've already been familiarized with them on a subconscious level. That is really the heart of advertising, okay? So marketing has a particular principle behind it. Advertising does too. Branding does too, and so forth. Okay, so WSS, those that are really going big and want to really expand, I'm going to show you a bigger case study here. So from the standpoint of bricks and mortars, okay? So I'm not sure who's in this crowd, but I want to address everyone. So WSS had a problem during the recession. They were losing 10% per year for 3 years. They lacked poor demographic reach. You're only after really one demographic. They had a really poor identity for people to associate with. And they had weak relationship with buyers. And they were price-driven, not value-driven. This is a very clear distinction I need to get across everybody. You're going to be either associated with price or value. And if you're associated with price, there's only one big player that could play in price and get beat up in price. For example, Walmart. Okay? Their whole business model is like, they don't care about if they have great relationships with the actual sellers and buyers. Their whole thing is that we're going to be the cheapest on the market. Okay? Everybody else has to be value-driven. Most people play on the price without looking at the value, and that's why I believe why a lot of companies fail. Why we have over, 90% of companies fail within the first couple years is because they're looking from a standpoint of price, not from a standpoint of value. So this is WSS. This is the inventory, what they used to look like. And they had great relationships with Nike. They're a footwear company. They're actually sells more shoes than anybody else, or carry more shoes than anybody else in the world, but nobody knew that. They've been around for 2 decades. So these are all the different brands that they carry. Vans, Puma, Nike. They represent all these brands, and nobody knew that, really. Okay? Now, they've been around for 25 years, but again, they're losing 10% per year during the recession, which is about 5 years ago. And then we came up with all different kinds of marks, okay? Hundreds of them. This is the before, and this is after, okay? So we wanted to create a mark that really separated them from all the actual vendors that they carry and separate them from Nike, from Adidas, from all the big players too, when it comes to brick and mortar. And this is the old store. This is their headquarters, and then a new headquarters. So what we end up doing is that we said, why don't, because you carry all the big brands that everybody would love to carry in their retail stores, and you guys have those relationships, let's leverage that. That's your position. You carry the widest selection of brand-known shoes than anybody else in the world. So we built these signs that actually wrapped around the building, and by wrapping around the building, then we're able to introduce people literally a half mile away. They can understand what the position of the store is and what is it that they're selling. The faster you could illustrate your position, the faster you're going to be able to acquire a customer. The faster you're able to. So that means you have to be, when it comes to communication, clear and concise. Clear and concise is what works. Not when you pour in a lot of information. It's pouring in the right information that's simple to digest and it's clear and concise. Does that make sense? And that could happen on a visual level, auditorial level, verbal level, or a written word, or a combination. I think that that's the reason why videos work the best, because it's a combination, okay? So this is the old signage, and this is the new signage. Now, what's important here is that Nike Air Jordan had a real problem, and all the Cat and Vans had a real problem with the top billboard because their logo on a 10-point scale looked like a 2 or 3, while you playing with Nike and Air Jordan where they're 8, 9, and 10 on a 10-point scale, 10 being best. So I said, why don't we have, I love solving problems. So they said, we're not getting any sponsorship dollars from the big brands that we actually distribute and that we actually are partners with. And I said, well, let's change that model. Let's have it so you are such a strong brand, you have such a strong brand identity that they want to play with you and they want to contribute. We got them now that they actually donate money and sponsor money to build the billboards. Does that make sense? So it's looking at problems and coming up with a new model. And a lot of times it's building, literally, it's building a very rich brand that people want to be associated with, whether if it's a customer, a prospect, investor, okay, strategic partners, affiliates, they want to be part of your ecosystem. And how you get them to be part of your ecosystem? You give them an opportunity to play and that they feel like they could wear it as a badge, that they feel a sense of pride. That's really what it is, okay? So this is the vehicle wrap, and this is a new vehicle wrap. And each, like I said, each media has a different set of principles. With the top one, they didn't get, you only got 1.3 seconds when a vehicle passes by or to read a billboard. The bottom one, you're able to digest a lot quicker, okay? So again, they had the wrong type of designer designing the wrong medium, and that's very common. And then this is just the inventory of everything else that we're doing. We redesign all the interiors. We design our website in a process where it's looking better than Zappos and a better shopping experience. One of the key things that you could do when it comes to looking at your engagement points, like your website, your storefront, your social media, is going through and tracking what is going to be the overall experience for the consumer. Step 1, step 2, step 3. What do they feel? Are they being guided? Okay? Are they being shooed away on a subconscious level? So it's really important to understand how you're actually looking at the flow through of your customer from a prospect, okay, or a lead to a prospect to a close. Okay? How are you going to nurture them through the process? Super important. And then this is just the inventory of what we're going to do for the interiors. And then this is, again, the brand style guide to make sure that the internal designers and all the affiliates are in conjunction and in concert with the brand, the do's and the don'ts behind the brand. So this is the result. I told them they did have a 10% gain after a year because they were in a recession and they lost 10%, remember, for 3 consecutive years. And I met with the CFO and I said, where are we at with the numbers? And he goes, Howard, you won't believe this, but we're actually 200% on the 4 pilot stores that you launched by rebranding them in 7 months. And I said, so, that was a huge surprise. And then when the president came in shortly after that and goes, we want you to do all our stores, all 52 stores, fast. Okay, so we increased our website profits by 1,600%, and then we did almost 100% more. This is a really important part. We actually created a lot stronger partnerships with our vendors, Nike, Adidas, all the big brands. And we created multiple revenue streams. Remember, I love helping out companies create multiple revenue streams. They're only working in a retail space. They weren't even looking at their website and social media space. And what made them super unique, President came to me, Eric, and he said, Howard, should we even give, at the early stages, should we even look at giving up the retail space? I said, no, because when it comes to social media and with all this digital marketing, okay, it's powerful, but people still want to connect. How do they connect? Face to face. Let's turn your stores into event stores, like having DJs and having special events. That's what we're doing now, and we're driving so much traffic there, okay? Kind of like the Apple idea with the store, but we're doing it differently. The point is that they had a very powerful asset called real estate. They're about to dump it, get online like everybody else, without realizing, no, we can leverage what you have and do things differently that online vendors can't do. Does that make sense? So a lot of times it's not abandoning things that you have just to be, get on a trend. It's looking at the asset that you have that's valuable, understanding what's an important asset, and then build from that, okay? Keep it authentic still. Keep it authentic, okay? So we basically moved them from one demographic that now we capture multiple demographics, okay? And we grew them from 54 stores to 81 stores in 4 years. They were owning an LA space, and after we got done with the strategy, he goes, I want to go nationwide. I just don't know how to do it. Okay, so that's when he leaned on us to help him build that brand to get him where he wanted to go. Okay, so then there's business and brand assessment. Okay, so a lot of companies go, we can't do that. We're not ready for that just yet. At the very bare minimum, do a business and brand assessment, okay? A business and brand assessment is like going to a doctor to do a checkup to figure out where you're at, okay, with your health. So therefore, you could actually make improvements and know what you don't know that you don't know about your own business and brand as you would with your body. Does that make sense? Okay? So this company here, they came to us and they had what's called a master plan, and they weren't able to reach their sales goal, no value proposition, poor online customer experience, weak brand identity, and slow growth. Okay? So that's where they were. And so what I do a lot of times with people is I work with them online. So I work with clients all over the world, and we work online, and I start to record what it is that they don't know, okay? And I say, well, where's your value proposition? And if I look at this, it's like everything's shouting at you at the same time. There is an order of a read when it comes to visual communication, and that is dominant, subdominant, subordinate, okay? Dominant, those are the best designs, the best whatever layouts, car designs, everything is applicable. Billboards, social media, it all relies on how the brain works in digesting information. So I said, on this, everything's shouting at you once, and you don't want to confuse the consumer. When you're confused the consumer, they click on next. Does that make sense? You want them to stay on. So what I end up doing is marking things up, saying, okay, where's your values? Okay, what's truly innovative about this? How come there's no copy that's actually overlaid over the video explaining your value proposition? Who's your target audience? Okay, so we went through that exercise, and then he came back, and we went through some more exercises, and we came back, and now we have something that actually is totally working. We gave credibility of where they've been seen. Okay, they didn't have that before. Again, a lot of companies have so much great gems, they just don't know how to leverage it and use it appropriately. I said, let's create it where we know it's for bachelors, usually in college, so let's demonstrate what it's really for, okay? Okay, for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It's one pan that cooks your entire meal at once. But when you see it without any words, people get lost in understanding what does this product do. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So the other thing that I said, well, you know what, the master pan, when I got down to talking about their business, and I said, your master pan really would only cover just the pan. But what happened if you want to grow beyond that? And he started telling me all these future products. I said, well, we have a problem here. You got to come up with an overall brand. And that's when we came up with the master wares. And we were able to get the .com. So I work with people very quickly, in a sense, looking at the assessment, what's possible for them. So I get online, and they're actually seeing how I'm discovering what they're not seeing, so they could actually use this to build the value behind their brand and leverage it and build it so it's worth a lot more, okay? So we went through this process here. And then the other thing, too, with our team, we have a bunch of attorneys. I'm not an attorney, but I understand the process of it because I've been working with it for the last 25 years. So I said, you know what, let's just find out if master cookware is actually taken. And we found out it was available as well. So I said, you know what, this is great because this will give us a better opportunity to actually go to the government and get a registered trademark R. The only time you can use a circle R is when it's registered trademark. What does that mean? It means when you're ready to sell your company, you have another piece of intellectual property that's worth value. Can you imagine if Nike, there was another company named Nike, and they're the first ones, and they're the only ones that register, and the Nike that we know couldn't use it anymore? That would kill it. So you have to learn how to protect your intellectual property as well. Okay? So this is the after as well from the standpoint. Now it's easy to navigate through their website. They took all my advice and they showed me what they did, and I go, this is great. This is 50,000 times better. Okay? You do make it more professional, easier to digest, laid out the pages correctly, easy to navigate through the website from the user experience. So they actually end up with a clear and concise message, easy website to navigate, positive website feedback, radical increase in sales. Remember, they couldn't create very many sales. Now they're actually producing sales. So now they have really a brand that's sustainable and scalable. So I always say your biggest asset should be your brand. Your biggest asset should be your brand, is yours. Can you say that your biggest asset is your brand? And then how many here want to go from amateur to world class? Okay. You're sitting in the right seats, and Ray hit it right nail on the head just perfectly. We're here to actually invest in ourselves and educate ourselves. And I'm constantly educating myself, constantly meeting people I've never met before, going to different seminars, reading new material, checking out this or that, because we're here to keep exploring what's possible, because literally we have an unlimited potential. Does that make sense? So, for me, I'm never going to retire. I love what I do, It's just different formats of how to express what I love to do, okay? So our vision is to enrich millions of people's lives, okay? And by shifting the business into leading authentic brands. And ultimately what we're about is about making a difference in businesses, difference in brands, so you can make a difference in people's lives. That's really why I do what I do, okay? That's what gets me up here. Again, Ray's so correct what he was saying about vision. Believe it or not, I am a total introvert. I'd rather be at my house up on the mountains. But, my bigger vision is I'm not about me. It's not about me. It's about what can I bring to people. Does that make sense? I remember, sorry, I wasn't expecting this, but I had some great mentors in my life, and they said, you know what, Howard, when I was younger, and I still feel like I got so much more to go, and they said, you're playing way too small. And Ray's absolutely right about the word selfish. It's selfish not for you to share who you are, okay? So each of you are in the right seats because you know that you're bigger than who you are, and that's the beauty. That's really beautiful. So what I'm going to offer are a done-for-you model, which we help companies build brands, and then we help companies go through a business and brand identity assessment. So this is our company. Like I mean, it's pretty big, but we build out everything from, the apps to storefronts to vehicle wraps to billboards. We got relationships with QVC, HSN, all the different arenas that you want to play in. But it's all about, the emphasis again is building that brand and building it so it's all integrated as one system, okay? So we are a full service firm for business and brand integration, from startup to upgrade to makeover. The other way is like you just say, oh, you're not ready for it. This is what I was talking about. This is a no-brainer. If is that I go through this brand assessment, and then I ask you to submit through email. Okay, if we live in the same town, a lot of people go over to my private residence and we go through the assessment. But most of my clients again are all over the map, literally. So then I ask you to send over your website, your logo, your packaging, or whatever it may be, and then I help you one-on-one. I get on the phone one-on-one, and we're actually recording and going over what improvements you can make with your whatever it may be, whatever you're using to communicate to your consumer, and we'll show you how to increase your communication, of course, to drive more sales, but to build a brand that's has a stronger credibility behind it, okay? So I do this live one-on-one, and so I want to give instant thousands of dollars of feedback immediately, and then how, again, attract more people. And so what I'm doing for Ray in this particular event, which which is a rare occasion, is that I'm also going to be giving away, this is the form, by the way, which I'll have in the back. Usually I sell my books separately from these assessments, but I'm doing them 2 for the price of 1, okay? So you're getting a book essentially for free, and you're getting an additional half hour for free as a follow-up. But basically what we do is have you fill out the form. You just check out the top part, cash, credit card. And then what happens is that you would email me, and then we'll set up a time to go over your existing brand and how to improve that over the internet, okay? And in a book, this book is not just any book, okay? Because when I first started like 30 years ago, there's basically 2 books around branding. Now there's thousands and thousands of books. And that's why I start speaking. I want to spread the truth about branding. The most recent books, what I didn't like about them is that no one told you the steps from strategy to implementation to management. The other problem with the books is that no one wanted to give and share their intellectual property. So there's no books that actually give you lessons, like how to build your value system, how to build a great core message. Oh. Okay, I got that to compete with. So anyways, this book is really designed around that. It's designed to build your business and to educate you, okay? So what I have here are literally, these are limited edition books. My books are sold all over the world, but they're not this cover and are not really thick paper. That will go away eventually. But right now, so that's what I'm offering at the back of the table. Now I only have 26 books, okay, here that I've autographed, and then the rest I'd have to send, but because I only had so much space in my suitcase. So it'll be the first 26 that you'll have a book right off the bat. So it's $4.97 for the assessment with the book and another half hour for follow-up. So now I want to get into Q&A, if I can go over this. But I want to get into Q&A. Any question you may have? Yes.
What if you are kind of at the halfway point? You already have a website, you have a logo, you've hired a designer, you're creating everything, but you're not like ready to submit all of that to you.
I would say submit it anyways, because the biggest thing you can learn is what's not working and what's working. And if you're ready to launch, that's super critical.
Well, I haven't launched yet. That's what I'm asking.
Better.
That's what I'm asking. Better. Can I launch? I mean, can I submit all this to you without having it completed yet?
Absolutely. Okay. That's the best time, actually, because then I'll give you critical feedback that you can take it back to your designers, and then they can modify it, so then it's more, it communicates a stronger brand when you are ready to launch. Yes. Oh, that's brilliant. I love that. Okay, so how can you brand yourself if the name's taken already? Okay? And it's a very common name. So there's 5 levels. There's 5 levels when it comes to trademarking. This is really important. So you have what's called generic. Generic is very difficult to trademark. Let's say hotel. Hotel, they're trying to, in Las Vegas, trademark hotel. But it's a whole category that they're trying to trademark. You can't do that, okay? The second thing is then getting into what's called, okay, so you got a generic, and then you have descriptive, so you're describing what you do, okay? Let's say hotel in San Francisco, just making this up based on the heritage, based on the region. And then there's suggestive, like Motel 6 was suggesting they were only $6, right? Okay? Then you get into what's called arbitrary. Arbitrary would be like Apple the fruit and Apple the computer, right? The computer company. And then you got fanciful, which is a totally made up name like Exxon. As you go up the totem pole, right, it's going to be easier for the trademark and easier to distinguish you from others. Because if your name is common and if there's someone else in your space that's similar to what you're doing, you know what? It's quite possible that they're going to get confused, that thinking of you as a different company, and you could be promoting another company without even realizing it. Does that make sense? Now, if let's just say that you have a name that's unique, and then you have another company that is using your name, but it's a whole different industry. So when it comes to trademarking, registered trademarking, the rules are this. There's a lot of rules. But one of the rules is, are you registering your name within a category that another company is using that name? For example, there's Delta Airlines and there's Delta Faucets. Delta, but in two completely different industries. Perfectly legal for them to both register the names. Does that make sense? But if you have like Delta Airlines and another airline's called Delta something, there can be an issue. And then that ends up in litigation and costs a lot of companies millions of dollars at times, if it's a bigger enough company, to fight for their position because their brand now meaning something too, okay, to the consumer. So that's what we figure out during the assessment as well, is a question like that, and then how to maneuver around it, okay? A lot of times, too, I say get the .com, .net is not bad at all, okay? .net is not bad at all, and then .co is good as well, okay? They advertised that last Super Bowl quite a bit, not this most recently, but they have. But there's all these things, tactical things to strategize to build the equity of your brand based on where you're at now and how to grow it. Yes? Yes, it's all about being able to navigate based on where you ultimately want to be. And the biggest thing I heard during lunchtime, I had a great table that were asking a lot of great questions. One of them is like, you don't want to give up the job that you have, in a sense, to go without having a comfortable grip on the other branch that you want to grab onto. Does that make sense? It's important that you still have the capital to infuse into your ultimate dream. Does that make sense? Really important to get, okay? Unless you have investors on the outside that go, we want to invest you 100%, let go of your old full-time job, move right into this play here, okay? And that's another conversation when it comes to investors. Another question? Sure.
I'm brand new at network marketing. Never did it before. We have I'm from Canada. We have 2 massage therapy / acupuncture clinics.
Okay.
And we want to integrate a product.
Okay.
It's a wellness product
Okay.
with a brand
Okay.
to our brand.
Okay.
And I was wondering if you can help.
Yeah, that's a good question. So you could get into private licensing. They could private license in other words, let's just say, I'm just making this up, but Apple would never do this, but let's just say Apple laptop, right? They would license it to you and then strip off the Apple mark on the cover so you could put your private label on it. Would they allow that?
No, that's not what we want to do.
Okay.
We still want to maintain that brand.
You still want to maintain that brand because of the reasons why?
It's something that's brand new. We still want to keep their brand, but we want to use our brand.
Okay, so that's what he's talking about now is a strategic partnership. Yeah. So what you want to do is you want to look at the alignment between the values behind what you're bringing to the market, to the consumer, and the values that they're bringing to the market, and you want to look for those interconnections. Okay?
Yeah, we have a huge database of customers, and we want to start network marketing this new product. Selling it retail, but also doing...
Right, but underneath your brand.
Yeah.
Do you have exclusivity to sell this product underneath your brand? Or do you have a region that you say this is what you are selling within?
No, I don't think it's...
Okay, that gets into contracts. Okay, so let's just say they want to look at numbers, by the way, when it comes to investors, or let's say... So he wants to take a product, put it underneath his brand, right, and be able to promote it. My question is, do you actually have exclusivity? In other words, do you have a region that nobody else could butt into? Let's say, state-wise, or let's just say country-wise. So you could write in an agreement saying, we'll do this for you, but we want to have exclusivity. So then you have zero competition. You see what I'm saying? And the best time to do it is when a company's just starting up. So there's a legal side of this too to really build a brand. But that's a good question. So that's what I would do. There's one more question, sorry.
Yeah, I have a question. If you are new in your network marketing business, what's the best way to brand yourself? You are new, you don't have results. Do you have to wait till you have results before you start branding yourself, or you just start? Like, how do you start for a newbie, someone who's just started a new business and you don't have a lot going on?
Yeah, so then again, it's a question is, are you going to be out there? If you're going to be out there as an ambassador to your brand, there's nothing wrong with branding your name. Okay, like me, I got Howard A. Lim on Twitter, Facebook, da-da-da-da. Okay, even though my company's How Creative, but I'm the ambassador to my brand. Does that make sense? If you're not going to be out there, I don't think it's going to serve you very well to really brand your name. And now there's a flip to this. You could have a really great name and you just don't know that you want to be a speaker or be out at events. Then you flip the model that you become the ambassador to your brand that happens to be your same name. It all depends on what do you want to do in your future and what's the best way of leveraging your time and utilizing your time and energy. Okay?